I saw her hand tremble, just for a second, as she poured a clear liquid into my drink. She thought I wasn't watching. That I was too exhausted from work, too distracted by the clink of wine glasses and the meaningless chatter of a dinner party to notice. But I noticed. And when she turned to me, smiled like a porcelain doll, and said, "A special cocktail for my favorite daughter-in-law," I took the glass with steady hands, and exchanged it with the one I'd already prepared for my father-in-law, who hadn't even made it back from the kitchen. She didn't blink. Neither did I. 45 minutes later, Charles Mercer was in the guest bathroom, pale as candle wax, gripping the porcelain like it might save him from drowning. Eleanor stood outside the door, frozen. Her face didn't read panic, it read calculation. She knew. And I knew she knew. But that night didn't come out of nowhere. To understand how I ended up at a family celebration swapping poison drinks with my in-laws, you have to start at the beginning. Not the day I married Adam. Not even the day I met Eleanor. You have to start with the night I realized that being successful, independent, and child-free at 34 was more dangerous in the Mercer family than any scandal. Because in this family, a woman who doesn't obey, gets erased. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The first time I met Eleanor Mercer, she didn't smile, she assessed. It was at a gala Adam had invited me to, just 3 months after we started dating. I wore a sleek navy dress I'd saved up for and pulled my curls back, simple and elegant. Adam had said she'd be impressed. But Eleanor didn't even glance at my dress. Her eyes went straight to my shoes. "Interesting choice," she murmured as she kissed Adam's cheek. "Comfort over fashion?" Adam laughed awkwardly. I just smiled. That's the thing about Eleanor, she never said anything outright cruel. She used polite tones and social graces like a scalpel. Every word had a second meaning. Every compliment had a seam of judgment stitched beneath. But I wanted to believe she just needed time. I'd grown up with strong women. Women who ran businesses, raised children, painted walls, and fixed plumbing. I wasn't easily intimidated by a passive-aggressive matriarch. I thought I could win her over, eventually. So I made the effort. I volunteered at her charity auctions. I brought lemon tart to her Sunday dinners even though she never touched dessert. I laughed when she critiqued the color palette in my living room, so unconventional for a newlywed couple. And for a while Adam thought we were getting along. He didn't see the digs. The glances. The tension that coiled between us like wire pulled too tight. His father, Charles, wasn't much better. He didn't say much at all. He just nodded whenever Eleanor spoke, like a bobblehead in a suit. The Mercer men didn't challenge the Mercer women. That's what became painfully clear. But Adam was different. Or at least, I thought he was. He loved my work. He celebrated every new client, every publication that featured my designs. He said my drive inspired him. That I made him feel bigger. But then came the family dinners. Eleanor would talk about Adam's ex, Laura, and her beautiful handwriting on thank you cards. About how Laura had always offered to help clean up. About how Laura understood the importance of being present. "You work so much, Sophie," she said once, pouring tea with her pinky delicately lifted. "It's admirable, of course. But marriage is a full-time job, too. You don't want Adam to feel second place to your career." I smiled, tight and practiced. "Adam and I both work hard. We support each other." Her smile didn't move. "Let's hope that's enough." That was the moment I realized this wasn't about personalities. It was about power. Eleanor didn't want a daughter-in-law, she wanted a disciple. And I had no intention of kneeling. She must have sensed that. Because that's when the game shifted, from subtle disapproval to something darker. The kind of darkness that hides behind hand-sewn curtains and crystal glassware. The kind that doesn't come with bruises or broken things, but with doubts, manipulation, and eventually, drugs and a drink. And I hadn't even seen the worst of it yet. 3 weeks before the Mercer's anniversary party, Eleanor asked me to lunch. Not Adam. Not both of us. Just me. She picked a quiet, upscale cafe tucked between a boutique florist and a linen shop, exactly the kind of place where nothing loud or unseemly ever happened. I almost didn't go. But something about the timing, just after I'd landed a contract to design a rooftop lounge for a luxury hotel downtown, felt too calculated to ignore. She arrived 15 minutes early. Of course she did. Sophie, she said, standing to greet me with air kisses that never touched skin. You look ambitious. I didn't ask what that meant. I just ordered my coffee. She smiled tightly. I thought we should have a little chat. Woman to woman. I braced myself. Eleanor leaned in as if sharing a secret. You've accomplished quite a bit. Your design work is notable. But I do worry. About balance. About priorities. There it was again. That word, balance. In her world, it was code for sacrifice. For giving things up to appear agreeable. Manageable. Contained. Adam and I are in a good place, I said calmly. We communicate. We support each other. He's proud of what I do. She nodded as if I'd confirmed something she suspected. Still, I know men. Especially Mercer men. They say they like ambitious women, until they realize ambition doesn't leave room for dinner at 6. I laughed softly. Then they learn how to order takeout. She didn't laugh back. I know you think I'm hard on you, she said, eyes flicking to the silverware, adjusting it so the fork lined up with the edge of her plate. But I've seen women like you before. Women who believe they can have it all, but end up with nothing when the dust settles. I tilted my head. And what is it you think I'll lose, Eleanor? She looked at me then, really looked. My son. I wish I could say I was surprised. But I wasn't. Not anymore. That night, I told Adam about the lunch. Not all of it. Just enough. She's worried we're too busy, I said, brushing it off, playing it light. He rolled his eyes. She doesn't understand our world. But he didn't ask what else she said. And I didn't offer. Maybe that was the first crack. Maybe I should have said more. Instead, I kept showing up. Kept being polite. Kept believing if I just worked harder, if I just smiled enough, made enough casseroles, laughed at the right times, eventually she'd see me as family. What I didn't know was that Eleanor had already made up her mind. She didn't want to change me. She wanted to erase me. And her anniversary party? That was the night she finally tried. The Mercer estate looked like something out of a glossy magazine that hadn't updated its taste since the early 90s, heavy drapes, oversized floral arrangements, too much gold trim. But it was impressive in the kind of way that made you straighten your posture when you walked through the door. I had just wrapped a 10-day install for a boutique hotel in Charleston. My team begged me to skip the trip back for the party, but I showed up. Jet-lagged, yes, but with perfect hair, a navy silk dress, and a smile so polished it could have cut glass. Eleanor greeted me with the same tight-lipped grin she always gave, like someone forced to compliment a rival's wedding gown. Sophie, she purred, kissing my cheek. I made something just for you. She disappeared into the kitchen before I could answer. Adam was charming guests in the living room, holding a whiskey and retelling a story his father had told 1,000 times. I passed Robert in the hallway, he gave me a wink and a warm clap on the shoulder. He always seemed to like me better than Eleanor did. Though I never mistook that for loyalty. A few minutes later, Eleanor returned with 2 crystal tumblers, one in each hand. The liquid inside shimmered slightly, a soft amber with an oily sheen that caught the chandelier light. This one's for you, she said, handing me a glass with a suspicious amount of ceremony. It's a little family recipe. Something to help you relax after all that travel. I held the glass, but my smile faltered. From the corner of my eye, I caught her glance, quick, calculating, toward Robert. And then I saw it. A faint residue at the rim of my glass. Barely there. Just enough. I didn't flinch. Instead, I walked over to Robert, still chatting with a cousin by the fireplace. "Robert," I said sweetly, offering the drink, "you look parched. Here, try this. Eleanor made it especially for us." He chuckled and took it without hesitation. If Eleanor made it, it's probably strong enough to kill a horse. She was still across the room when he took the first sip. She didn't see me set my untouched glass quietly behind a centerpiece of hydrangeas. She didn't see me slip into the guest bathroom and text Julia, my closest friend from college, now a toxicologist. "Bring your test kit. Tonight. Emergency." By the time dinner was served, Robert looked pale. By dessert, he was sweating through his collar. 45 minutes after that cocktail, he excused himself, stumbling toward the downstairs powder room like a man trying to outrun his own body. Eleanor followed, trying to play it off. But when her eyes met mine across the dining table, just for a second, something shifted. The pretense dropped. And in that single glance, she knew I knew. I didn't speak. I didn't confront. I just folded my napkin, kissed Adam on the cheek, and whispered, "I think I'll head home early." What I didn't tell him, what I couldn't tell him yet, was that I wasn't leaving in defeat. I was just getting started. The next morning, I met Julia at her lab just outside downtown Asheville. She was already gloved up, her hair tied in a messy bun, the way it always was when she was focused. She took the glass I'd sealed in a Ziploc bag and raised an eyebrow. "You want to tell me what's going on, or should I start guessing?" "Just run the test," I said. "I'll explain later." "Maybe." 2 hours later, she called me back in. "I don't know who you pissed off, but this," she held up a sheet of paper, "isn't your average sleeping aid. Benzodiazepine," she said. "A heavy dose. Enough to knock someone out for hours. And depending on the person, could cause confusion, memory loss, nausea." I sat there, not speaking. My throat had gone dry, but my mind was racing. Not with fear, but with precision. Julia leaned in. "You're lucky you didn't drink that, sophomore." I looked up. She didn't want to hurt me. Not physically. She wanted me to miss something. Something important. And that's when it clicked. The final presentation for the Charleston Hotel. The client meeting I'd been preparing for over 6 months. If I'd been drowsy or confused, or worse, unconscious, I would have missed it. Lost the contract. Damaged my reputation. It wasn't about poisoning me. It was about ruining me. Over the next 2 days, I started pulling every loose thread I could find. I requested a background check on Margaret's pharmacy history. There were 3 different doctors, each prescribing a version of the same sedative over the last year. Enough to keep someone in a twilight state for days if combined. I looked deeper. Jessica, my sister-in-law, had mentioned something years ago, just in passing. "You know how Margaret is. She hates when her sons get too close to anyone else." I called her. "What did you mean by that?" I asked. Jessica paused on the phone. A long, loaded silence. "I wasn't sure I should ever say this," she finally whispered. "But you're not the first one, Sophie. And you won't be the last unless someone stops her." I asked her to meet me. She agreed. And just like that, the mask my mother-in-law wore so perfectly was beginning to crack. Jessica met me at a small cafe near the lake, one of those quiet places where the coffee is always slightly burnt but the booths feel safe. She looked tired. Not in the sleepless mom way I'd expected, but in the heavy, worn-down kind of way that comes from years of being dismissed. "I wasn't going to say anything," she began, wrapping her hands around a chipped mug. "I mean, who would believe me? Margaret's the queen of bless your heart while stabbing you in the back with a salad fork." I nodded. She wasn't wrong. "She did it to me too," Jessica said quietly. 2 years into my marriage with Brian. Right before my promotion interview at the firm, she invited me for tea. Said she wanted to celebrate my success. I thought she was trying to make peace. I leaned in. And? I blacked out in the cab on the way to the meeting. No memory of how I got home. Lost the promotion. My boss thought I'd shown up drunk. My stomach turned. Brian never believed me, she added, her voice cracking. Not until he saw her try to do the same thing to you. Jessica slid a flash drive across the table. I had a tech friend recover this from one of the backup cameras at their house, she said. It's from the night of the anniversary party. I didn't touch it yet. I couldn't. I was going to delete it, she whispered, but when Robert got sick and Margaret started panicking, I knew something was off. Then I saw you switch the glasses. I finally picked up the flash drive, turning it over in my fingers. It felt heavier than it should. She's dangerous, Sophie, Jessica said. Not just manipulative. Strategic. She doesn't want you gone. She wants you ruined, so Adam walks away thinking it's his idea. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. The wheels were already turning. Later that night, alone in my office, I watched the footage. There she was, Margaret, in the kitchen, carefully pouring something into a glass. Label off camera. Hand steady. A small, satisfied smile as she stirred. Then, the moment of exchange. Me, stepping into frame, taking both glasses, then the subtle switch on the way out. And then Robert. Drinking. Margaret's panic. Robert stumbling off camera. The next clip was audio only, 2 days later. A hallway mic, probably forgotten. Her voice, low and sharp. It should have been her, Margaret hissed. Robert, it was your mistake. Her again, don't worry. Adam's already starting to doubt her. Just a little more, and he'll think the distance is his idea. I pressed pause. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I saved the files. Backed them up in 3 locations. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about a pattern. About truth. And about the war I hadn't asked for, but was ready to finish. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I called in sick, something I rarely ever did, and spent the first 3 hours organizing everything. I printed the lab report confirming benzodiazepines in the cocktail glass. I compiled the timestamps from the video footage. I listed out names and contact info of women who'd either lived through or narrowly escaped the Mercer family orbit, Jessica, Eliza, even a woman named Rachel who'd dated Adam before me. She'd once filed a police report after waking up disoriented in her own car after a dinner at the Mercer home. Nothing ever came of it. No one took her seriously. But I would. That afternoon, I invited Brian and Jessica over for dinner. I didn't tell Adam. Not yet. We sat in the dining room, chicken roasting in the oven, a pitcher of iced tea sweating between us. My laptop sat open on the sideboard. Flash drive plugged in. Brian looked tense. Jessica had that look, like she was bracing for another earthquake. There's something you both need to see, I said simply. I hit play. The room stayed silent as the footage rolled. Margaret doctoring the drink. Me switching the glasses. Robert sipping. Then the audio file, the conversation where she admitted it all. When it ended, Brian buried his face in his hands. Jessica reached over and touched his arm, but he didn't move. She did it to Sophie too, Jessica said softly. You believe me now, right? He nodded. Slowly. I do. I didn't want to. That night, I finally told Adam. We were in the living room. The lights dim. Our wedding photo still hung on the wall, crooked from the time I'd knocked into it during a deep cleaning rage. I showed him everything. At first, he shook his head. This can't be real. That's not my mom. But then I played the recording. Margaret's voice. Clear, deliberate, cold. When it ended, he just sat there. Silent. Still. She's been doing this for years, I whispered. Not just to me. To every woman she didn't approve of. Adam rubbed his face with both hands. I didn't see it. God, I didn't want to see it. He stood up. Paced. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you needed to believe it on your own. If I had come to you with accusations, you would have defended her. He didn't argue. Instead, he sat back down beside me. I'm going to talk to her, he said. You won't change her. I'm not trying to change her, he replied. I'm going to tell her that whatever grip she thinks she has, it ends now. I nodded. Do you still want to be married to me? He asked suddenly, voice small. I took his hand. Yes. But not if your silence becomes her weapon. He looked at me then, really looked. For the first time in months. And I think that's the moment we both realized, we weren't just fighting Margaret. We were fighting for us. The next evening, we went together. Adam asked his parents to meet us at their home. No surprise, they agreed without hesitation. Margaret even suggested we clear the air before the holidays. That was her specialty, after all. Sweeping the wreckage under a rug woven with family traditions and carefully arranged hors d'oeuvres. But this time I brought a rug of my own, and it was soaked with truth. We sat in their formal living room. The one with the untouched white couch, porcelain figurines on glass shelves, and a silence so stiff it could choke you. Margaret smiled like nothing had happened. Would anyone like tea? No, Adam said firmly. We're here to talk. Robert's expression shifted immediately. Defensive. Margaret just folded her hands in her lap like a queen awaiting praise. I took a breath, opened the folder I'd brought, and slid a photocopy of the lab report onto the coffee table. Then came the printed screenshots from the footage. The list of prescription refills in her name. The transcript of the voice recordings. The testimonies. What is this? Robert asked. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Fabrications. This is absurd. Adam didn't blink. Mom, it's you on the footage. It's your voice. I was trying to help, she said, the mask cracking for the first time. She's not right for you, Adam. She's ambitious. Cold. Selfish. She'll leave you the second she gets bored. She's the only person who hasn't lied to me in this room, Adam said quietly. Robert stood. I think this has gone far enough. Sit down, Dad, Brian said from the doorway. They hadn't expected him and Jessica. Robert froze. We're not here for revenge, I said, finally. We're not here to embarrass you or destroy your reputations. We're here to draw a line. I slid a small envelope across the table. Inside is a USB. It contains everything. The footage. The evidence. Testimonies. It's not been sent anywhere. Yet. Margaret didn't touch it. I'm not threatening you, I continued. I'm giving you a choice. You stay out of our marriage. Out of my business. Out of our future. Or this goes public. Every PTA, charity board, garden club, and business contact you've ever smiled at will know what you've done. Robert looked at me for a long time. And then, he nodded. Just once. Margaret said nothing. But I saw it in her eyes, the shift. Not respect. Not remorse. But the dawning realization that the game she'd played for decades was finally over. We left without finishing the conversation. Because there was nothing left to say. And that silence? It was the loudest victory I'd ever known. 3 weeks passed without a single word from Margaret or Robert. Not a text. Not a passive-aggressive voicemail. Not even a forwarded article about the dangers of overworking while pregnant. And in our world, that silence meant one thing. They were regrouping. But I wasn't the same woman they used to manipulate. I wasn't waiting in fear. I was busy. My studio was thriving. Kindred Nest had just landed a new contract, designing a wellness retreat in Sedona. Adam was finally sleeping through the night without clenching his jaw. And I was starting to show, just a little. A soft curve that made me cry the first time I saw it in the mirror. Then one morning, a letter arrived in an envelope far too elegant for the chaos it was destined to cause. It was handwritten, on thick cream paper, sealed with gold foil. Margaret's handwriting. Dear Sophie. We would love to host you and Adam for Thanksgiving this year. A new beginning, perhaps. Please consider it. We'll keep things simple. Just family. Just family. I almost laughed out loud. The same family that tried to drug me, gaslight me, and break my marriage? Adam read it, folded it neatly, and said, "Your call." For a moment, I imagined declining. Staying in Asheville, curled on the couch with takeout and a bad movie. But some battles weren't won with distance. Some victories had to be walked into. In heels. With clear eyes. So, I said yes. We drove up on Thanksgiving Day. The house looked the same, too perfect, too quiet, too staged, but the energy was different. Margaret greeted us at the door wearing beige cashmere and a smile stretched too thin. "Welcome," she said. "It's so good to see you." Robert gave a stiff nod. Dinner was careful. Polite. Nobody asked about the baby. Nobody mentioned the business. Nobody made eye contact longer than 2 seconds. The turkey was dry. The tension was moist. After the meal, Margaret invited me into the sitting room. "Just us girls," she said. I followed, heart calm. On the glass coffee table was a velvet folder. She pushed it toward me. "I'd like you to consider a design project," she said softly. "Robert's company is opening a new branch in Charleston. We're looking to refresh the interior." I opened the folder. Renderings. Budget. A real proposal. No conditions. No fine print. Just business. I looked at her. "Why me?" Her eyes met mine for the first time in months. "Because you're the best one for the job." There it was. Not an apology. Not an olive branch. But something far rarer, coming from a woman like Margaret Mercer. Recognition. I nodded once, closed the folder. "I'll consider it," I said. And when I walked back into that dining room, holding that velvet folder like it was a trophy, I knew, without theatrics, without shouting, I had finally won. There was no courtroom drama, no headlines, no screaming match that ended it all. Just a quiet line in the sand, and a woman who refused to step back. I didn't burn bridges. I rebuilt new ones, sturdier and stronger, with boundaries made of steel and love that doesn't apologize for shining. If this story made you pause, breathe deeper, or feel seen, I'd love to know. Would you have stayed silent like Sophie, or fought back sooner? Type 5 in the comments if you believe Sophie handled it perfectly. Type 9 if you would have gone public with everything. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to EN True Tales. Because next week's story? Let's just say, someone's daughter-in-law isn't as sweet as she looks.